Starting the webinar. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is the Equity Advisory Committee on Aging and Disability, or EACAD, EACAD. You will be hearing a lot of that, EACAD. And I'm going to mute our panelists so everything is nice and clear. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's go to the next slide. Today is June 25th, 2026. This is the second meeting of the EACAD for 2026. So we thank you very much. I am Carol DeAndres. I'm the Stakeholder Engagement Manager here at the California Department of Aging, or CDA, for the Master Plan for Aging, or MPA. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Our meeting accessibility features include our ASL interpreters, and so we are pleased to welcome you all. Thank you so much to our very experienced ASL interpreters. Closed captioning is available to you during this meeting. There is a CC icon at the bottom of your toolbar, and you can enable that to view the transcripts. And if you don't see that, check under your three dots, which is the More button. It might be hiding under there. Next slide. Meeting slides, and the recording will be posted to the CalHHS, or California Health and Human Services webpage under the EACAD meeting. And give us a week or so to get that together. And committee members, if you can check your name display, and if you still say EACAD member or guest, please rename yourself to your name so we know who's joined us today. And please turn on your camera during the meeting so we know everybody is present. And if you cannot turn on your camera, can you send us a chat to let us know that you are here and that you're having video problems? Next slide, please. The chat function is enabled for committee members, California Department of Aging staff to share out meeting-related information and resources. And note, when you share out to our attendees, select everyone. The public's able to view this content, and the chat and the question and answer functions are not enabled, but we do have a public comment period, and we'd welcome your public comments during that time. If you would like to send comments after this meeting or during this meeting, you have written them, please email them to our Engage email box at engage, ENGAGE, @aging.ca.gov. Our logistics for public comment. If you're attending by phone, you have the ability to hit *9 on your dial pad to join the line, and that will indicate to us you would like your line unmuted. And if you're attending by the Zoom webinar function, please, you can hit your raised hand icon, and that will also indicate to us that you would like to leave a comment. Note that we have 2 minutes per public comment, just so we make sure that we have enough time to get to everyone. And again, anytime, please send a written comment to our Engage email box at engage, ENGAGE, @aging.ca.gov. So we welcome you to the Equity Advisory Committee on Aging and Disability. And the purpose of this committee, or also known as EACAD, EACAD, is to serve as a strategic partner to California's Master Plan for Aging, or MPA, advising and ensuring that equity is intentionally and meaningfully woven throughout the implementation of the MPA's 5 bold goals. And we couldn't do this purpose without our esteemed committee members. As you can see, we have many members throughout representing various advocacy, philanthropic, and have specialized expertise. And we are so pleased to welcome all of our committee members and thank them for their expertise, their time that they devote to ensure that equity is meaningfully woven throughout the master plan for aging. Thank you all. So let's go over our agenda. We have done our welcome. We're hoping to do a land acknowledgement. We've had some technical difficulties, so we'll find that out. Opening remarks from Sarah Steenhausen, our Deputy Director. We will have an Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board update. That's called ADLEAB, ADLEAB.
Monthly Monday.
And we will have a very long, we've devoted a lengthy amount of time to our EACAD priorities discussion. So we hope to hear from all of our committee members during that time. Then we'll have public comment, closing remarks, and we will adjourn by noontime. So with that, are we able to get Lynn? Hi. Lynn Fritz
Hi
is.
there.
Oh, yay. Okay.
Thank you so
Yes.
much, Lynn, for being here and giving a land acknowledgement for our EACAD meeting. Thank you.
Absolutely. So as we begin the land acknowledgement, I invite us all for a moment just to sit back in our chairs, to set everything down, and to allow ourselves, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes. And taking a long, slow, deep breath in together. And with that relaxing exhale, I invite you to think of where you traverse upon the land in California, whether it's a city street or someplace in nature. Imagine, each of us imagining ourselves where our feet touch the earth. And as we gather this day, we come together with consciousness, the mindfulness, the intention of honoring all the indigenous people of this great state of California, and to honor all indigenous people across our nation and across our globe. We acknowledge that the land upon which we traverse, build our lives, and move in this sacred time of life was the land of the original people, the First Nations, the indigenous communities. And we honor that legacy. We operate and move through this lifetime with deep respect and reverence for all indigenous people, recognizing that we are brothers and sisters. We are one people, and that all of our relations, the two-legged, the four-legged, the winged creatures, the rocks and minerals, the insect life, the plant life, the life that is in our waterways, and the life-sustaining energy of water itself, are all our relations. And as we move forward in this meeting, we carry that knowing and consciousness, that respect and reverence for life. And we give thanks for this knowing and for this honoring. Take another deep breath in, and that relaxing exhale. I invite you to open your eyes, come back to our meeting. And thank you, Carol, for this honoring. Oh, we're complete.
Thank you so much, Lynn. That was just beautiful. Thank you. I would like to introduce Sarah Steenhausen to kick us off. Sarah, please do.
Great. Thank you so much. And yes, Lynn, what a beautiful land acknowledgement. Thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through that. First, welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're just so thrilled by the new membership that we have represented in this committee, and as well as our members who have been with us for several years now. Really appreciate the time that you all have taken, particularly our leadership work group, to engage in between meetings. And really, it's because of that leadership work group that we were able to think through a way to approach today's meeting and bring us to a place we can focus the efforts of this committee. I also want to acknowledge that our stakeholder co-chair, Jax Kelly, cannot be with us today because he was selected for the 2026 Public Voices Fellowship on Public Health, which is a program sponsored by the Op-Ed Project and Blue Shield of California Foundation. So that's a huge honor for Jax, and unfortunately that meeting conflicted with this meeting. So we encouraged him to go attend that and lead on, and we look forward to his presence at the next meeting. I also want to acknowledge June as Pride Month. We are so pleased to celebrate Pride and all of our population, and thinking through ways that we can uplift the voices of LGBTQIA older adults. And with that, I think that we have time. We have lots to cover in this agenda. I appreciate, Carol, you're walking us through that. And with that, I'd like to move into our first agenda item, which is our AdLib update that I will be covering, and look forward to also comments from Linda Cardoza, who participated in the AdLib meeting. So thank you. Next slide, please. So as you have heard, we have convened now six meetings of our Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board. It's really proven to be a very effective way for us to engage people with lived experience representing California's older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers from across the state. And the important part is we're really trying to focus in on lived experience. It's not policy discussions, but it's more what is their experience as older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers throughout the state. And it's these perspectives that we're trying to uplift and inform our implementation of the master plan for aging to ensure that the master plan remains embedded in what really matters, which is what is the people and the needs of the population that we should be focused on as we advance the master plan for aging. So we're going to provide an update of the most recent meeting of the Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board, which focused on scams and fraud, really with more on the financial scams and fraud. And what was exciting about this engagement with our AdLib is that we were requested by the Elder and Disability Justice Coordinating Council to have an engaged discussion with AdLib on issues about scams and fraud, their experiences, and importantly, their recommendations for what is needed from their perspective to better curb the incidence of scams and fraud. So what was wonderful is that the reflections of our AdLib committee were woven into the discussion at our recent Elder and Disability Justice Coordinating Council. And we feel like this is a great model, and we're hoping that, you know, in the remaining meetings that we have with our AdLib, we can uplift their voices in other issues as well to inform our other committees and the state as well. So always look for you know, your ideas, and if you want to be on the AdLib work group, we fully would welcome your participation in that. And I want to thank those members on EACAD who have been providing guidance as we implement AdLib, and that includes Denny Chan, Ephraim, Vince Cristosomo, Linda Cardoza, and I believe Dr. Sue Alhessan. And if I'm forgetting somebody, please forgive me. But all of your engagement has been really informative. So as I said, that the May meeting focused on financial scams and fraud, and there was some polling done of the group. unsurprisingly, almost 2/3 have experienced attempts and or incidents of financial fraud in the past 2 to 5 years. And also, not surprisingly, primarily this fraud occurred through emails, phone calls, text messages, and online accounts, as you'll see in the poll that is pictured on screen. Next slide, please. I'm now going to walk through some of the voices and the comments that we heard from our members. And this is Carolyn from Berkeley. And she said that she is really open. I am really open to scam because I use technology all the time. Scammers are getting better and better at what they do. Next slide. And for Jennifer Chasman Brown, who is from Los Osos, California, and one of our caregivers serving on the committee, she said that my husband taught me to look at the email address of the sender. If it's a real email address, it's coming from the company. If it's not, it's not coming from Gmail or some random address. That's a really important point. And Lilith Danu, who's from Santa Rosa in California, who also is a caregiver, but also experiencing her own issues as she is aging. She said that one thing I find distressing is a scam that sounds legal, but it's not. So that's happened. We've heard a lot of instances with collection companies that sound like they're officially there to, give you notice on something for collection, but they're not. Next slide. And then Cindy Soto, who is from Long Beach, California. And she said, I haven't fallen for it yet, but I've had phone calls, emails, and texts. It's hard to figure out if it's legit or not. Next slide. And Dr. William Daly from Fresno, California, he said that he's learned that financial abuse is still one of the #1 abuses among older adults, and oftentimes it's not reported. So that was a big focus of the discussion as well, is how to encourage reporting and elevating these instances when they do occur, so there can be a response. So what we heard in general was, one, the importance of focusing on awareness, raising awareness of fraud and scams, and how to prevent fraud and scams, and really thinking about how older adults think. And so this is important to, instead of coming up with solutions to it that aren't informed by older adults, the importance of really engaging older adults in the solution so that they can be responsive to what older adults and people with disabilities need. And then finally, addressing isolation and loneliness is really critical, because oftentimes people engage with strangers if they're feeling isolated or lonely in their home, whether it's online or by phone, and they may develop a relationship with another person because they think, oh, this person's a friend and I can trust them, when really they're being targeted. So again, this ties into this broader need of that we need to address in terms of curbing isolation and loneliness among older adults. So we also, some of what we heard would help is, as I noted, engaging older adults to design the educational materials. And really ensuring that education materials are embedded throughout our system, so that it's not like you have to go to the local fraud center and find out what it is that you're facing, but that no matter where you enter the system, they can educate you on fraud and scams prevention. The importance of service provider collaboration and coordination to ensure that these incidences are addressed and understood before they, so that they can be curbed immediately. Leveraging local trusted organizations that older adults often seek support from in the community. And to that point is the importance of community helping community, and that a lot of the prevention and resolution can come through peers training peers. So that's something that, I think we have a lot of opportunity to consider about potentially community health workers playing a role in educating and raising awareness in this space, or peer support specialists as well. There also was recommendations for a warm line that could provide information and support to people experiencing experiencing fraud and scams, because oftentimes, again, people don't know where to go if they are targets of scams and fraud. So at this point, I'd like to go to the next slide. Oh, let's go back. And we can take down the slides. And I'd like to ask Linda for your reflections too, given that you were able to participate in the meeting.
Thank you, Sarah. So in terms of the points, I think you did an excellent job summarizing the inputs that were received from everyone. I think I wanted to go back to something you said very early on and just reiterate the importance and the value of obtaining lived experience examples, and to really thank that the AdLib team members in their willingness to share some very personal experiences. I know that was tough for a number of them, but their willingness to share and then reflect it back to the larger committee, I think, was just invaluable.
Agree. Well, thank you for being part of that process and for your reflections on that, Linda. Great. So at this point, we are going to, let's see, we're going to kick off our next agenda item, which is our EACAD priorities discussion. And I'm really pleased to be joined by Carol DeAndreas, our wonderful stakeholder engagement manager. We're going to walk through, a lot of the discussions that we've had in between the full committee meetings with our leadership work group. And I just want to give a huge shout out to those members who serve on the leadership work group. If you want to raise your hand and note that you are a member of it. Because, this committee is essentially, we have so many new members and so many new engaged members. It's been fantastic to think about how we can kind of refresh the work of this committee. And so we wanted to start by stepping back and thinking about what each of you see as the key priorities and how we might come to agreement on where some priority focus areas can be moving forward. So again, this slide lists all of those who are on our leadership work group, and welcome your comments throughout as we walk through this discussion today. We're going to start by kind of summarizing what we heard from the leadership work group, and then what we will do is we will transition to the remaining discussion and really try and hear from all of you. Carol's going to facilitate that component of the discussion and get to a place where we consider how might this committee, where are some of the key opportunities to focus on moving forward. So with that, Jax did an incredible job leading this work group and thinking through ways to approach developing priorities. And he, based on the conversations that the leadership work group had in their 2 meetings, Jax developed a memo that you all have that summarized kind of the key high-level themes of the discussions. And I actually need to pull out that note right now. That I don't have it in front of me. I need to pull out the leadership work group summary. Sorry about this. Okay, here we go. I'm opening it up. So the first theme is access and navigation. Just give me 1 second here. Okay, there we go. Access and navigation, and Jax noted that several proposals that the committee members uplifted focused on different aspects of access and navigation, highlighting the challenges that people face, including caregivers, immigrants, dual eligible people eligible for Medicare and Medi-Cal, limited English proficient population, how difficult it is for some of these population to access services and supports. So there was a lot of concerns elevated by our members about language access, enrollment complexity, navigation, digital inclusion, and fragmented service systems. So we were able to receive a number of comments, written comments from our members, and some of the key components that were identified included language access and translation services, enrollment and renewal simplification, caregiver navigation and supports, digital inclusion, and cross-system coordination. So again, this is the emerging theme that arose in one bucket about access and navigation. Carol, I'm going to ask you to move to the next slide. Equity and inclusion. And in this space, this really, we'll talk a bit about the poll that Carol led, and she'll talk about some of the results, but in terms of narrowing down the areas of focus for this committee. But unsurprisingly, this was an area that most of you felt really was key for this committee. Members consistently have emphasized the importance of ensuring that aging and disability systems effectively serve populations that historically have experienced disparities in access, outcomes, and representation. So this, of course, specific populations that have been identified include LGBTQIA older adults living with HIV, immigrant communities, limited English proficient populations, people with disabilities, people living in rural communities, and communities of color. So the key components of this really include culturally responsive services, workforce competency, community engagement, and reducing structural barriers to participation. Okay, next slide, please. Aging in place and independent living. This was the third theme that really was a focus of conversation from our leadership work group. Multiple concepts that the members of the leadership work group elevated focused on preserving the ability of older adults and people with disabilities to remain safely in their homes and communities, including access to home and community-based services, transportation, caregiver supports, social connection, and loneliness. We talked a bit about that in our ad lead meeting, as I noted. Prevention of institutionalization, as well as behavioral health supports that promote community living and independence. Okay, next slide, please, Carol. The next theme that was elevated, fourth of the 5 themes, is workforce and system readiness. A lot of our members identified opportunities to strengthen the workforce and improve the capacity of systems serving older adults and people with disabilities. And again, some of the themes that were elevated, I think we also heard in some of the other priority areas, including culturally responsive services and supports, competency in serving populations of older adults who are identify as LGBTQIA, competency in serving older adults who are living with HIV, as well as thinking about ways to leverage the role of community health workers, supporting family caregivers, and of course, workforce training and development. Okay, next slide, please. Let's see, that says healthy aging. Let's see here. And then finally, I'm not seeing the one on this. I thought it was behavioral health.
That is the next behavioral health.
Okay, I see. Okay. So if you want to go previous slide, healthy aging with HIV and systems integration. So a key theme that has been elevated is the need to look at those aging with HIV and how to better connect services across the system from medical care to home and community-based services. This was actually a lot of the focus of a legislative hearing, the first legislative hearing that was held of the older adult LGBTQIA special committee that was convened by Senator John Laird. And it was a wonderful engaged opportunity with Senator Laird and the members of the committee to uplift a number of issues impacting older adults living with HIV, as well as LGBTQIA older adults. So this priority area represents a lot of the themes that were covered in that hearing as well. Next slide. And then finally, we heard a lot about the importance of behavioral health, social connection, and future-ready systems. So several of our members identified both immediate behavioral health challenges and longer-term opportunities to strengthen our systems, serving our populations of older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers, including mental health access and behavioral health equity, serious mental illness and substance use disorder, Again, the importance of focusing on social isolation and loneliness, and preventing more serious mental illnesses from occurring by providing prevention and early intervention services, community-based supports, technology-enabled service delivery, and cross-sector collaboration. So as you can tell, the leadership committee was really, really comprehensive in the issues that they identified. And we worked a lot with Jack following the leadership work group to think about how we might, from there, focus the work of the committee and engage all of you in thinking through this. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Carol. And Carol's going to talk about the process that she led for committee feedback in trying to see where the real priorities were across these 5 themes. So Carol, turn it over to you.
Yes, just a few questions in the chat about how whether these 1 through 7 themes are in any order, and they're not. These are themes that were based on feedback from the EACAD Leadership Committee that Jack's distilled and pulled out into these 7 themes. So, and they are just listed. We devised, with Jax's help, devised a survey to put out to our EACAD membership to identify those themes or areas of focus that the committee might want to hone in on. And with that, and that was the survey that you received, we had 20 members respond. And so these are the top 3: equity and inclusion, behavioral health, social connection and well-being, and aging in place and independent living. And as you can see, the number of people, 65% or 13 folks selected equity and inclusion, as well as behavioral health. That was also 13 folks, and 11 folks honed in on aging and selected aging in place and independent living. Total number of members who responded were 20, and our membership is 26. So I can't do the math.
Great response rate. Great response.
Great response rate. So thank you for all that took time to respond to that. That will give us a starting point. So let's go to the next slide.
Yep. Yeah, so I think that what's really important, and for those of you who've been on the equity advisory committee for some time, I'm thinking, Denny, you and I have talked a lot about this, is that equity is everything, but if you make equity everything in this committee, it becomes nothing because there's not a focus. So this is the really, really important role that you all play, is our goal being, how can we identify areas of focus, the key issues where significant disparities exist, and increased awareness can help inform MPA implementation and align with the MPA goal areas. So really thinking about, again, the role of the Equity Advisory Committee to uplift the disparities in the population and where there are important opportunities to elevate and raise awareness. I just want to start with some considerations, and you all might want to add some others into play. But what we're really hoping for from this committee is to get to a place where you can identify a few, like 2 areas, concrete areas, that leverage current policy initiatives or partnership opportunities that address time-sensitive issues or emerging inequities in the system, and that offer a clear pathway for action. And importantly, many of the themes that were elevated, which are so spot on, are many issues that are being covered right now in some of our other, the 4 other MPA stakeholder advisory committees. So we feel that it's important for this committee to think about what issues haven't been elevated in our other committees that have a very strong equity intersection and have a clear pathway for action. So again, these are some of the considerations that we'd like to offer to you as we engage in this discussion for the next hour or so, because we want to hear from all of you, and Carol's going to do the facilitation of it. And we welcome your feedback on everything that was just said. And Carol, I'm going to turn it to you at this point to kind of open up our committee discussion and feedback.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. So let's go to the next. Great. Callie's ahead of it, reading my mind. We do want to hear from you. This is, we've devoted a lot of time in the middle part of this agenda to hear from our committee members. Based on what you've heard and reflecting in your personal or professional experience, what do you see are the key issues of focus for ECAD and for what reasons, and any other considerations? So at this time, I'm going to ask Callie to take down the slide. And I am going to go to gallery mode so we can see everyone on the screen and open it up to you all for any initial thoughts. And again, thank you for those who completed the survey. And we appreciate your feedback just to give us a funnel, a head start to start the conversation. So,
this is Eric. Do we need to raise our hands or I'll go?
either way, and Eric, I'm glad to see you. Go ahead.
So, and thank you so much, Carol, and everyone on the call today. I'm happy to be here. And I'm in Riverside County, and I represent um, the low income sector representative for CAP, which is, I don't know why I can't think of what it stands for right now. But anyways, my work is really grounded in in-home supportive services. And I'd like to also really focus on LGBTQ issues. So all the themes are just great, and I was one of the 20 that participated. But the what my research here in this town shows that independent living is impossible if we don't treat mental illness or mental health and social isolation as an afterthought. So I think that should be front and center. And when I started on this committee, I just mentioned as an older LGBTQ person, I had major surgery and I was frightened to think of someone coming in and finding out, oh, about me, and then how would they respond? So that's, I kind of really hope that our committee sort of can think of it that way and then focus to protect our most vulnerable. So that's kind of just what I wanted to open with and say, but also, most of this the specialized workers directly as far as affordable senior housing complexes. Again, elderly, LGBTQ, I have quite a few resources that I want to recommend, but the in-home supportive services, the language, getting at, with having strong outreach, but really getting into the communities somehow. I know we have sort of a lot of agencies will have vague, if you will, responses or outreach, but I really want to get in there somehow and reach folk that are like would be really surprised. And I don't know if that would be maybe if there's through certain literature, particular color or a symbol that would identify someone and that would speak to them. And again, I'm putting myself in this situation because most older LGBTQ folks kind of move silently through things and don't really out ourselves. So, and a lot of times, if we're not engaged, it's because we don't want to be outed and feel like, okay, well, we are pressing upon somebody our personal issues. So again, take that into consideration, but really focus on outreach. Yeah.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Eric.
I'm not.
That was great. Thank you so much especially from your personal experience. Lynn, I'm going to add your spotlight and go ahead. What are your thoughts?
So for me, I'm up here in Shasta County, Redding, California, And one of the challenges we have is how rural we are. And for instance, Trinity County is low population, but spread out over large areas. And I must say, I was very impressed when I would show up in Trinity County or other, especially rural Siskiyou County, and there would be the printed materials on aging. I was like, wow, that's so awesome. However, it's hard to get people to pick them up. And so what I've done through the years, I've worked in media for a long time. I've been trying to restructure the radio station I'm working with for the last 16 years to host a number of programs that serve Shasta and Tehama counties, but also to expand podcasting. And hopefully at some place we have KIXE, which is a public television station that serves all of Northern California, to get a program going, because more people will tune into, a radio program, a podcast, or television, specifically PBS. And so that's kind of what I've been working on behind the scenes, and hopefully can pull that together very soon, if not sooner. The other thing that I struggle with or notice is that the non-recognized Native people, meaning they're not federally recognized, don't receive services or very limited services that federally recognized Native people do. And so it creates some disparity and tension. And I know that they'll talk about wanting to be able to establish programs for their elders. So maybe creating see if we can, talking to some of the rancherias to see if they would host something that would invite the non-recognized natives to come in, the elders, and learn about resources, and hopefully can coordinate that with the Department of Aging. So those are kind of the things that I'm working out. So the emphasis for me too is outreach, 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 making those connections, building relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Yes, outreach. Great examples. And I'm going to turn to Megan. Go ahead.
Hi there. My name is Megan. My focus for the last 12 years has been accessibility and building websites to make websites more accessible for people and end users. And that topic seems to come up a lot on the calls we have. And when we talk about resources, like Lynn was just mentioning, I've been focused on trying to build a program where the websites have better access to information. It's easier for people to navigate. I've worked with a lot of different state agencies, and I know that there's a lot of money spent on accessibility. So I've actually been working on a workforce program where we can train people to navigate and build the website better, and then keep the funds within the state rather than outsource. So I'd love to get feedback on that. Some of the organizations that I'm looking into is like the prison to employment programs. So if we can set up a training program where we can teach prisoners to make the websites accessible, it's kind of like a full circle. We're keeping it in-house. We're training people on how to build the website. And then we're also making the website more accessible. So like there's tons and tons of documents that the state has on their websites that are not compliant. And so if we can teach remediation to people, even caregivers, anybody can really learn how to remediate. And then we're not outsourcing out of the state. We're getting the funds to stay in, and then we can use that to build more resource outreach. So I would love to get some recommendations on different programs to try to help with that, because I know we've talked about like the CDA website maybe not being that needs some more work on it. And I thought, why wouldn't we keep that in-house? That would be amazing, and teach people how to get jobs and kind of keep a full circle in the state. So open to any recommendations and feedback on that.
Well, I know in our group we do take remediation seriously. So you've struck a chord in my heart. But we can get back to drill down deeper what you're thinking and how that could work within the committee, or so we can get back to you on that one. But remediation is a thing that we do for sure, for sure.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. Awesome. Love feedback.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn to Anne. Thanks for joining us, and please go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Carol. Hi, everyone. So I really appreciated Sarah's comment earlier that equity isn't everything. So I, similar to what some other members have been saying, I think trying to increase accessibility and making navigation of the healthcare system generally easier for individuals through an equity lens would be really beneficial to the work that we're doing here. I specifically have been working in the dual space for the last handful of years. So individuals who are eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid, which happen to be California's most expensive population. And they're also one of the most diverse populations in our state. So I haven't seen anything specific to assisting duals in navigating and accessing services. So just thought that could be a worthwhile goal to work towards for what we all have here. Thanks.
And we appreciate your sharing your experience and your focus. Denny, I will spotlight you if I could do it.
Thanks, Carol. Hi, everyone. Denny Chan from Justice and Aging. Really appreciate the new members and all the energy and ideas you all are bringing. As one of the folks who's been here for a while, I'll just say I think when I took the survey, and thank you for all the analysis, I saw only one option. I only picked one, which was equity and inclusion. There are so many other efforts, both inside and outside of CDA, that are focusing on the other themes that were identified. We are trying to do this work around equity and inclusion in a moment where there's tremendous attack at a federal level. Last month in May, the federal government released a proposal saying that if you get federal funding and you do DEI work, our proposal is that we would terminate your funding. So, for me, I think there's only really one option, and that's to double down on the work that we all came here to do. I think there's a lot of other things we could do that are worthwhile that would support equity because California is a diverse state, but the very nature of the work that we all signed up to do is under attack. And so if we don't double down, I don't think there's any other group that will look at the impacts of federal and state policy on LGBTQ older people, on older immigrants. These are the sort of communities that we've been tasked to work for with this master plan on aging. So I think there's only one option. I would encourage us to double down on that. I think it's great if people have other ideas to work with CDA on them. It doesn't mean that if we just do one that we don't have to have other ideas, but this is the moment, and we are already, a year and a half into this federal administration. And this committee hasn't really, outside of the ad lib, hasn't been responsive to the federal attacks. So I think this is the moment, and if we don't do it now, I'm not actually sure when we would do it. Thank you.
Can I just add in something on that, Danny? Danny, thank you for your comment. I think that's a really important consideration. And obviously, I'm not a committee member, and we want to hear from all of you. But what I would ask is that when you say focusing, this committee can have a voice in focusing on the impacts of federal and state policy on, the populations of focus that have been identified for this committee, which is older immigrants, LGBTQIA older adults, as well as those living with HIV, and our tribal population of older adults. I think that one of the thoughts is, well, what does that look like? What does that mean for this committee? Do you all play your own advocacy role? CDA is not speaking for the committee, so thinking about what that looks like and how do you have specific issues that are elevated for each committee meeting. And there might be ways to think about it. It doesn't need to be addressed now. It's just kind of an ongoing question. So
I would just say, Sarah, as a response to that, I think the first place to start is the MPA to see where and in what ideas and initiatives, these particular populations of focus are directly impacted. And then I think another piece of that has to be responsive to what's happening at the federal level outside of the MPA, because the MPA cannot exist in a vacuum.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denny. Yes, you, as they say on Broadway, you are an original cast member for sure. And there are a few of you, and we're so pleased to have new folks as well, to really lift up and get us going and the energy. It is hard to do 9 shows a week, right? So it's good to have more people on the cast. Amina, hello.
Hi, oops. Hi, good morning, everybody. Very excited to be here this morning with y'all. I think when doing the survey and kind of thinking back about what this committee is about and whatnot, I really do have to emphasize the importance of equity and inclusion in everything that we do. I work at the Get the Kimberton family out here in Orange County, and we know that, California is a very diverse state, and English for a lot of our community members is not their first language. So we want to make sure, and we're always advocating here for language access, making sure that our community members know what's happening within their city, within their county, and within their state as well. Because a lot of times, or oftentimes, we do find that, you know, great programs are coming about, great services are coming around, different policies are changing, but the information are not dwindling down to the community members. Because of language access, a lot of them are not able to understand what's happening, all the different policies that are moving and changing. So we do a lot of work around making sure that the flyers are translated in a language that's in the language that they understand, making sure that, we are providing translators and interpreters at the board meetings, at the city council meetings and whatnot. I just want to kind of amplify as well. Our behavioral health, social connection, and well-being. I think that goal is very important as well, especially with, all the different policies that's happening, all that with the Proposition 1, the prevention, early intervention money going away. The Kimberton family, along with MECA, the Multi-Ethnic Community Collaborative, has been a part of the early intervention services for older adult for the last 10 years. The funding has come to an end June 30th. And this program is really important for our older adults, specifically for our older adult, because it really focuses on their needs, their behavioral and health, their well-being and social connectiveness. This program in the County of Orange was specified for our multi-ethnic groups. So we had the Cambodian family, we had the Vietnamese speaking community, the Korean speaking community, Arabic speaking community, the Spanish speaking. I mean, it's very multi-ethnic, and as a collaborative, we were running the early intervention services for older adults, providing social connectiveness classes and activities, providing therapy, providing case management, and all of these activities were done in language. So I really want to amplify that work and continue to bring inclusion and equity into the work that we're doing continuously. And really, it starts with language access, making sure that the people we are working with and we serve understand what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina. We appreciate your comments. Dr. Sue, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I had to unmute myself there.
Yes, for sure.
I'm really enjoying the conversation, and I wanted just to share when I was going through looking at the different concepts, I went back and I was looking at the demographics under the MPA. And I was specifically looking, and I didn't find it, so please tell me if I was looking in the wrong place. But I was looking for the demographics on HIV and aging, and in our what are the current demographics breaking down cultural and in our state. I didn't see that. That was the one thing I was assessing, because as part of any project, I look at the numbers. Where's the data? Of course, that's my research background. But that also helps in narrowing things down in regards to our next project, what we're looking and initiating. And equity and inclusion, yes. And I like what you said, Sarah, like if we don't want it to be, it should actually, how I see it is that because we're under this advisory group, that equity and inclusion should be the factor on every single project concept that you have here, whether it's California Aging Disability Navigation Improvement, Aging with HIV Systems Integration, or the third one that you have behavioral health and social connections and future ready. I think all of those were not encompasses the equity and inclusion lens. And most importantly is that when we're looking at these, aren't we also going to be really focusing on, that was the number 5 that I was looking at, future ready systems. How is this going to be incorporated in when we're looking at the planning and incorporating those key concepts that we're looking at? What new paradigms, and I'm just sharing some of my thoughts with out loud, but what new paradigms can we start looking at incorporating to support each of these concept areas moving forward? And I don't see them as mutually exclusive. I see all of them connectivity. They intersect in so many different areas when you're looking at navigating systems, or you're looking at healthy aging in your home, whether it's in-home support services. All of those kind of tie in together, and the equity lens and inclusion is in every single point you put here, Sarah and Carol, when you're putting it together with Jax. I could really see that as I was reading it through. Being a aging person with a disability, where I had polio at the age of 3, so my disability isn't new to me. But for many people who are aging and they have disability conditions, it is new to them. And I could see where a lot of the behavioral issues, as far as isolation and access, would be really a challenge for many of those individuals, because part of disability and whatever you are in aging process is adjustment and acceptance. And that's where the challenge comes in when you're incorporating the behavioral components and isolation. So I think I narrowed them down to the areas that were identified. I think one of them that I had focused on specifically when I was looking at this is, and I'm not saying that any of them are not important over the other, but because we have a limited time frame to start working on these projects, I think, again, incorporating all of the equity and inclusion lens focus on each of these areas, it would be the initiatives. The first concept, California Aging Disability Navigation Improvement Initiatives, and then the behavioral, social connection, and future readiness. I narrowed them down to even 2 as far as project ready, to kind of start really defining parameters around how this can be moved forward. Thank you.
Just to add in before we move on, Dr. Sue, thank you for that. I do want to also just kind of, one of the caveats for committees, our stakeholder committees is, and then one of the, balancing acts is that when you step back to think, okay, so what is the the role of an advisory committee and the purpose it brings to the state, because this is something that is we have 5 standing committees right now. And the importance of elevating recommendations. So sometimes there are opportunities to align and partner on different projects that are moving forward, to your point, Dr. Sue. But at the same time, and this kind of gets to what Denny was saying, is the importance that you all play in calling out and naming issues and naming problems and challenges and raising state awareness about it, so that, and however that might look. So it's giving a voice to things that don't have a big voice right now. And then you all can play a role in making sure that that voice is elevated throughout the MPA, and we can help provide that platform.
Right. And I just wanted to add one important thing that was brought up, that right now this administration is attacking a lot of equity and inclusion, and specifically relating to our aging and disability community. And the greatest attack right now is for us to be able to live in our communities, which is the Ulstead. And so that's, I think as things arise, we can't ignore them either, even though that's not part of it. So, but how can we be inclusive as far as incorporating it into what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
Which is what was mentioned earlier. I totally agree with that too. Our voices, like you said, matter. And so if we're being attacked that we can't stay in our homes independently anymore, wow. I mean, that would affect me and so many other seniors and people with disabilities out there. There's over 70 million of us. And we haven't even touched the surface. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. I would like to just highlight a couple of uh, chats, information put in the chat from Eric to Dr. Sue's question regarding number of folks living with HIV. Over 50% of people living with diagnosed HIV in the United States are now 50 years or older, and that number is skyrocketing towards 70% by 2030. California statute already explicitly mandates that older adults living with HIV are a population of greatest social need. Thank you, Eric. I'm gonna, Nikki, thank you for having your hand up, and please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. So, one of the things that I know in the caregiving space is there's so many possibilities and so many things that we do need to work on, and it's overwhelming. And unfortunately, majority is not within our control. Having said that, for those that are currently struggling with support for caregivers, I know Lynn also mentioned in the remote areas, I just want to say there is immediate access to Caregiver One Call for caregivers who are struggling. All our services are free. We're 24/7 until policies are in place, until things change, until we get to where we need to be at. We are bridging the gap the best way we possibly can. It's free 24/7 emotional support. Sometimes it goes way beyond emotional support. And when that happens, we do have a partnership with BetterHelp that gives our caregivers free therapy for 90 days. We also are able to provide respite. We also do virtual and in-person training depending on where we are, Lynn. Unfortunately, it would be virtual for your area currently. But the beauty of folks knowing about us and working with us is ultimately we get to grow in all these different areas that need us. So please, this is just a plug for all the things that need to happen right now. There is some type of an immediate emotional support fix for caregivers that we're identifying. So thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Diana.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I really want to concur with Dr. Sue and Denny and what they raised, and everyone else before them. But I think the issue of equity and inclusion, it really does cross over all the identified themes, and we are under attack. And so I work in Monterey County. I oversee adult protective services and in-home supportive services, in addition to the area agency on aging. And I also oversee the CalWorks Employment Services branch. So I see families with young babies struggling, with basic food insecurity, housing issues, and then all the way, all ages in between up to our elders are also struggling financially, food insecurity, housing. And so as I look at these identified themes, although again, I totally agree that equity inclusion crosses over all of them, and that should be the focus as we advocate. For me, like one of the common themes in both young and old, with all abilities, is the behavioral health and mental health access and lack of. And right now, at least at the state level, we have, and local levels, county behavioral health departments are getting approvals for their integrated plans. And so I did see a letter, I think, from CDA, in addition with other partners at the state level, to ensure that, or at least call out that many of these integrated plans are lacking really concrete metrics for assisting older adults, age 65 or other. They're just kind of lumped in with adults in general. So it's really an area, a gap within the behavioral health system that needs to truly be addressed with actions and ways to measure those actions. And it is something we can advocate and rally behind right now to ensure that something does happen that's positive. And it is a concern because, as somebody mentioned too, like these support groups, peer-to-peer groups, all that ended in our county when we had adult peer-to-peer groups ended will end as of June 30th because of the changes at the state level regarding what behavioral health can spend their money on. So intervention programs like peer-to-peer groups will end effective in a couple of days. And so that prevention and intervention is, I know through the AAA and CDA funding, it's not something that there is funding for, but if that can change, I mean, advocacy for what financing or funding priorities are at the state level and even through the AAA would help with supporting some of the organizations at the local level that are helping, like Nikki's program and other programs that help with peer-to-peer type of groups that help with that social isolation, depression. What I'm also hearing in our county, because we're a combination of rural and cities, but in the rural areas, which are the most isolated and the most impoverished communities, of course, transportation, housing, food insecurity, lack of employment, all those are areas that impact our the poorest of the poor and the most in need in our community, and their equity issues and access issues. But I wanted to call out in general housing needs, because that crosses over. It's not just rental assistance that's needed to prevent homelessness, because as we know, we've seen the data that individuals 50 and over are the fastest growing homeless population. So if we don't do something to help them, at least those that currently have funding through HUD or whatever those types of programs are, if we don't help people to stay housed, it's just going to continue to increase. And the other issue we heard in our rural areas, some of our elders were fortunate enough to buy their homes 30, 40, 50 years ago when, they were more affordable. Now, no one really can afford to buy a home, depending where you purchase it. But most of us have heard house rich, cash poor. So, I remember doing a focus group in one of our smallest rural areas or city areas. And I remember this elderly couple in their 80s, and they were sharing, the wife was sharing with me that she couldn't get into her bathtub, and she would put towels on the floor and inside to help her from not slipping, but she didn't have money to retrofit that bathtub to change it into an accessible shower for her to come in and out. They didn't have money to fix their staircase to enter their home because now they have a wheelchair and they couldn't like navigate that. So staying in their home was becoming more and more difficult. And, forget if they have a leak in their roof because they cannot afford to do that, which means, their house is deteriorating as their health is deteriorating, and the likelihood of them staying in their home and living independently are reduced each year, right? Depending again on how big those repairs are for their home. And so, again, with funding, at least at the state level, we can advocate for a variety of housing supports for people with different needs, whether you're renting or have your own home, because I don't know that that's really been called out. And I know we have a small amount in the AAA funding that comes through, but it's not enough to make really a huge impact. The other thing that we heard through focus groups in our area is the need for, and I didn't see it in the MPA, or at least concrete ways in which it could be addressed, and that is the need for senior centers or hubs in all areas of community, especially, we have really solid, amazing senior centers in our very rich communities like Pebble Beach, Pacific Grove. These are very affluent areas, but in the rural areas, there's none or very little senior centers where people can congregate, not just to get a meal, but also to share and talk. And, I was talking to a dear friend of mine who actually served on the original MPA committee when it was being formed. And so I asked, did you not, why was this issue not brought up about the need for senior centers to help with people not just getting a meal, but just that camaraderie and addressing isolation that are walkable. And he said that it really wasn't in the people who served on there, the mindset, because a lot of them were wealthy and so probably were members of country clubs and things like that. And we actually had that conversation in a country club. And so look around us, there are people here 50, 60, 70, but they're in this, very plush country club. Well, our people in rural communities who are impoverished and living under, very low income Social Security benefits, if they even have that, don't have a country club to go to congregate. They don't, maybe they'll get a home delivered meal, but they need spaces. People need spaces, no matter where they live, no matter what their zip code is, to be able to come together as a community. And addressing again the isolation, I'll never forget two women. One of the questions we asked, what do you do when you're sad? And so this one woman, again, maybe in her 80s, in Spanish, she told me, me lo trago, which means I just swallow it, I eat it. And because they didn't have or know or easy access to mental health services, somebody to talk to. And then another woman in North County, rural area, said, I go to my room and I cry. And so I think we need to, and again, it's all related to equity and access and aging in place. It's all,
Absolutely.
there's an intersection with all of that. But I just wanted to share some of my input from some of the community members that we've interviewed.
Thank you so much. Yes, especially the intersection, as you say, social isolation, behavioral health access, all of those things for our low-income adults, older adults, as well as others. So we appreciate those boots on the ground, personal stories. Thank you, Diana. Candy, how about there was someone else, I guess, Candy, go ahead, and maybe Katie, I think it was. I don't know if Katie had to get off. Candy, go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Diana. I'm sorry if I did not conclude. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to reiterate access and navigation. A lot of the populations that I work with are immigrant and migrant, and so while it is important to have different languages translated, it's important to know that some of these populations don't have the literacy to be actually reading the information that they're being given or to be able to fill out forms because they don't know how to write. And so just to be able to have an acknowledgement that as they're aging and they're given all of this paperwork, that they may not be forthcoming to say, I don't know how to fill this out because I don't even know how to read it. And so I know that I do work in CHW development, so it's really important that we leverage those community leaders that already have that trust because there has been that federal pressure on immigrants and people of color that are being negatively affected by those rulings and those agencies to be able to make sure that these populations are still having access to getting to their medical appointments and to be able to have transportation and accessibility to any of these services, but also the component of living in a rural area where some of these infrastructures don't really exist. So when I saw that the reporting accumulated to a concept of future ready, I just want to be able to highlight that it's not just future only because that's predictive of that the infrastructures already exist. So if we do go down that route to keep it as parallel of yes, future sustainable sense of that concept, but really focusing on equity and inclusion and also access and navigation, especially for these rural and aging populations that are already being marginalized enough with the other administrative and other policies that are negatively affecting them. So I do want to give that focus on the summary that we as ECAD members received. So I just want to be able to ensure that we're doing actionable, presently needs to be able to assist populations and that future ready is more of a parallel to be able to make sure that the programs and projects that we will focus on over the 12-18 month is more of a sustainable act rather than we're only considering future only and having that focus of the horizon and everything that we can fix now gets left on a back burner, so to speak.
Absolutely. Thank you. That is always the tension, right? Acting now, the fire that's burning in front of you as opposed to the fire behind you too. Vince, can you please, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Vince, where did you go? You were here.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
First, I wanted to say when I first joined this committee, which I think was about 3 years ago, these were the kind of conversations I envisioned that we would be having. And so I'm glad to see that. I also want to say I totally agree with Denny. Equity and inclusion, given all the stuff that's happening in our country right now, is something that needs to be focused on. And with that, I want to give a plug for HIV and aging. California is home to the most number of people living with HIV in the country. We are constantly under attack. We've been fighting for equity and inclusion all of our lives. You cannot deal with some of the issues that we face without dealing with any of the other issues. During COVID, when they were giving out housing to people, they specifically excluded older people with HIV or people who had substance use disorder or substance use issues because they couldn't handle that. In 2015, I started lobbying. I started doing my HIV and aging work, and I lobbied with the Dignity Fund. I brought my community. I brought everybody. And 12 years later, the city is yet to fund anything. And I feel like if it's not stated, it's not anybody's issue. But there's no way that you can touch any of the issues that we've said. Also, Senator Laird passed SB 258 in 2021. It was ratified in 2022. That is a policy that helps us to guide us The American Society on Aging recently released a toolkit on including HIV and aging. We had the first hearing a few months ago, about a month ago. We're going to have follow-up hearings, which is going to go through the state. And that's the plan. So I think that there's a lot of built-in. And also, since people who are historically been funded by the Office of AIDS or by the Department of Public Health are working on these issues, so there's logical partnerships. BIPOC folks are disproportionately affected, as are immigrants. In fact, one of the partnerships in San Francisco, where 75% of the people living with HIV are over the age of 50, and I think about 50% of them are over the age of 65, is between our Latino communities who are partnering. There's a Latin partnership between that's part of the Department of Aging, and our HIV organizations have teamed with. So there's a lot of potential there. But if we can't go with HIV and aging, because I realize not a lot of people know it, I will also say that when I spoke at the California for Everybody a couple of years ago, I got 3 minutes. I mentioned just 2 minutes of my story. And people came up to me after and said, this is the only new thing that I've learned at this conference. And so I just think it's time. California is a state that's supposed to lead. And if we can't do that, then I would definitely push for the equity in aging. Also, Jackson and I are working with a researcher to kind of see about implementing the toolkit across the state. They're going to give us $90,000 for that. And I'm like going, that's all for a state as big as California. Well, if we get it funded, they may think it's too ambitious, but I just think you've got to start somewhere. We have been fighting for equity, inclusion, all the things we've talked about all of our adult lives. And so I just think it's time that we need to shift that. And also it builds on the survey that we did, the LGBTQ survey. There were a lot, there was I think 65 out of the 4,000 people. But there has been some sort of it builds on work that we've done previously. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Vince. Thanks. We really do appreciate your comments and your service to this committee. You are also a longtime committee member. We really do want to hear from everyone. I know that Carly and Ron and Jose, you have put some interesting comments in the chat, and I'm hoping that you can share them out as opposed to me reading them. So if I could get, if you wouldn't mind putting your hands up as well, and Lauren Butler, yes, there's a lot of information in the chats. Eric, thank you for your. Can I move to Alicia and others, and then circle back with you? I appreciate everybody's willingness to participate. So let's go with Alicia, please.
Hi, I just wanted to bring attention to. I just want to remind, everyone that, that there are urban and rural tribal communities and that still are not meeting the needs of the elderly population. There's a large population of urban natives who are unrecognized and who are not eligible for any services because of relocation acts. And a lot of them live like in Oakland. There's a large urban population in Sacramento. And I guess re-solidify the fact that, a lot of our Native people do not have sometimes beyond like a fifth grade education. So a lot of these pamphlets or navigation that they don't know how to navigate the system themselves. And so there needs to be, I know there's a push for community health workers that to go out into the community and to help navigate that process. But a lot of tribal communities are lost in the process, especially if they're urban, they're homeless. And then second is just from what I've experienced with, my mother who's aging, she lives in a BMR apartment, but the apartment is like unwilling, the housing accommodations. She needs the bathroom to be retrofitted, so it's a step in versus a step over, but they will not pay for it. They'll pay for the installment. And I think this, of handlebars, but I think this is a true for a lot of like elder people. They do not have the money to pay for the retrofitting themselves. And so then that makes them unable to live in their homes independently. So I think like, if there could be some push for more money towards like, our aging population that just does not have the money to be able to pay for themselves to be able to live in their homes independently. Those are just kind of the things I wanted to bring up, and just a reminder that, not only are there, na rural natives, there are urban natives as well. I'm from Humboldt County, I'm Yurok, and even a lot of our elderly population there, even though there's tribal housing, there's not enough tribal housing. And so you have multi-generational living, which is fine, which is normal for a native population, but sometimes the multi-generational living becomes unhealthy because of the habits of other people, and there's a lot of elder abuse that occurs. And so I just want to, I feel like sometimes Native people get lost in that translation because they think of tribal communities of having casinos, which not every tribe in California has a casino. It's very rare. Um, there is no such thing as per capita payments for every single tribe member, and so they are still navigating the process just like everyone else, but they get lost in the translation because of stereotypes.
Thank you so much for your viewpoint that we know it, but do we know it, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I'm asked all the time, like, are you a per capita, do you receive per capita? I'm like, no, I'm Yurok, but I'm an enrolled member, but we don't get per capita. I don't get, and me living off of the reservation now, I've lived off the reservation now, 20 years, but even me living off the reservation, I do not qualify for any benefits from my tribe because I live off of, so like if I wanted to like have any housing for when if I were still living in Sacramento, when I retire, I would not qualify for housing. Um, I have to move back home, which is fine. I'm fine with moving back home, but there are a lot of people who maybe are not, who have established themselves in certain communities and are not willing to move back, to where they're from. So they face the same thing as, every other aging population within California.
right. Thank you so much, Alicia. It was good to hear from you. Carly, thank you for joining us. You've had a lot of some information in the chat, so we'd love to hear you vocalize that, please.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all. Carly Stelzer with the California Behavioral Health Association. I really am so grateful that I'm a part of this committee and able to hear from so many people who have such great perspectives. I keep responding in the chat to help me keep track of everything I want to say. So just want to, appreciate especially everyone who has shared, their lived experience, their personal experience, and what they're hearing from community members and folks that they're delivering services to. I really appreciated Denny's point around the federal context that all of these actions are happening in. And I think the more you hear from more people around access issues, language access issues, like physical location access issues, issues for tribal populations, urban and rural, I think all of that ends up becoming very influenced by what's happening at the federal level. And I think, especially as we're thinking about what's going on in California, I'm sure you all are aware of budget negotiations ongoing. We need to be very sober in our approach to what is feasible. I think everybody needs more money and support and financial incentives and resources, but we also are living in an environment in a time where that's like not very possible. And so we need to really look I think more broadly at what the federal administration is doing and how it's bleeding down into California, and then be really very realistic in how that context is limiting access, and how, community health workers are awesome. And we hope that those can continue and be a continued benefit through Medi-Cal for the state. But we also know that the state is in a very tough situation. Who's getting Medi-Cal benefits? What services are going to continue to be covered? And so I think, when we're approaching how we're going to take our next steps and what kind of advocacy we're focusing on, we can't ignore that federal context. And I will also add that in a lot of my feedback to the MPA that we did, I don't know, last month, since our last meeting, that virtual feedback form, a lot of my feedback also was focused on how federal changes have impacted what our state does, and then how that kind of makes our MPA not as effective and not necessarily addressing what we want it to address, because a lot of things have changed. And as was pointed out, just federal grants in the last, couple of weeks are now completely changed. Who can access them? What kind of information and services can you provide and get funding from the federal administration? Also, we know that there's issues for LGBTQ plus individuals for housing. How can you access housing vouchers? Will you have protections if you're trans? Are you even eligible to receive housing supports that come through the federal government? And so there are tons of questions, and I think that really needs to be a point of focus for us. And if it means, coming to these meetings and like refreshing ourselves on how federal policy changes are impacting state policy and where our advocacy can go from there, because I think it's one thing to recognize it's a problem. We obviously don't want to get stuck in this is a problem and there's not a lot we can do about it. So getting really creative, I think sharing the resources that have been already shared in this meeting and all of the work we're individually doing is a way we can kind of combat some of the negative impacts from changes on the federal and state levels. But I do think that kind of needs to be an overarching theme when we think about equity and inclusion. So hard to summarize all the points, but that's where I'm at right now. So thanks for letting me bring voice to that.
Thank you, Carly. It is good to hear your voice as well. I'm going to turn it, Linda, we haven't heard from you. There are a few comments. I know an individual. Let me read Katie's comments because she is in the airport and she has a lot of background noise, but of course I've lost it. So Linda, go ahead just so we're not taking up time. Thank you, Carly.
Hi, thank you, Carol. So as I'm looking at the notes I took on the themes and then listening to everybody's inputs, there's an awful lot of material. And the themes, there were a number of themes. And then when you look at all the sub-comments and the subtopics under the themes, it's huge. So I really appreciate what Denny said is we're going to have to figure out how we're going to focus and whatever that means and how we get there. And then I also want to appreciate what Dr. Sue says, because I'm the same way. I'm a numbers person. Give me a set of numbers. Let me see where we are. How do we use those numbers, the demographics, whatever it is we choose to decide to highlight in numbers? What does that really mean? How do we end up taking that and focusing on those areas, obviously with the equity lens. But when I think about what I heard, and I heard this through a number of different people, going back to access and navigation and having provided direct services for a number of years, is the whole thing about communication. It's about awareness. It's great if you have all these programs and you have all these resources, but if people don't know about that, then okay, fine. And then if you do have all these resources and the people can't access it, that's another issue. Or if they can access it, but they can't read it, whether it's not in the language that they prefer or it is literacy. So there's just all of these different areas and all these different topics that are coming out. But I think where my head is going now is we're just going to have to figure out how we want to focus, because we can't do everything. And then also what Carly just said about the funding, what's happening at the federal or the state level. If we're talking about something like, let's say, aging in place, HCBS services, what does that happen? What's happening there? Who's funding that? Because that's where we see, especially here in California, is funding moving from where it was, or is funding still available? Are people going to be able to age in place if that's what they want to do? Same with the behavioral health, everything that's happening in that arena as it relates to the changes in funding, what's ending at the end of this month, and what hopefully will happen with the new fiscal year. So to me, it's a lot of good, interesting information, but it's a lot. And how are we going to now take all of that, get it down to the critical few, and then figuring out what it is we really want to address? Thank you.
Carol, you're muted.
Okay. How long have I done this? Katie, I'm going to read your comment unless you are able to. Okay. This is from Katie Calvoda. Wanted to contribute to the conversation, but at the airport, being from Orange County, I want to amplify the recent chemical spill incident in Garden Grove and the utter lack of consideration for older adults and persons with disabilities. They were left for themselves. Entire communities of low-income seniors could not relocate due to numerous limitations. Since this is a recent event, it might be helpful for us to explore a written response in real time with recommendations to help drive any policies or legislations that may stem from this state emergency. Thank you for contributing. Yeah, that's at top of mind for a lot of us. Thank you so much. Ron, I know we haven't heard from you, so can you come off mute if you are around? Ron? Maybe Ron had to get off. Jose, you put
Seeing him, Carol.
Ron's on.
Oh,
Just needs Ron unmute on your side. And we can add a spotlight.
yeah, there he is. Are you able to unmute, Ron?
Did that work?
Yes, it did. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Hope you can hear me okay. I think I want to try to highlight what Denny said, what Linda said, and then underscore what Dr. Sue said in terms of the numbers and what's in the MPA. Because what I'm hearing from Linda, and I kind of agree with this, is that there's awareness issues. There's also access issues. I put those into language economics, which might be geographic or household level economics, health status and disability, which I would include mobility issues, hearing issues, as well as HIV positive status, literacy levels, and then there's the cultural levels. We've heard about Native Americans and LGBTQ. So I'm thinking the numbers would be helpful for us to have to kind of level set what we understand around vulnerability characteristics, some of the sizes of these populations, and then we bring our experience, our personal experience, to looking at these established facts that we would present or have presented to us, and from that begin to look at what the gaps might be or what our priorities are, so we might select those.
You cut out just a little bit at the end there, Ron, at least for me.
I was thinking we could have the numbers presented to us about the sizes of some of these populations based on vulnerability criteria or characteristics that we would agree on. And we look at the numbers together, bring our personal experience to the discussion, and then begin to set some priorities about what the gaps may be or what the strategies might be that we want to support.
Thank you, Ron. Go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to say to that, I appreciate that very much, Ron. And what I'm thinking is one resource to elevate that was released last year is the Home and Community-Based Services Gap Analysis, both the DHCS Medi-Cal Gap Analysis as well as the non-Medi-Cal Gap Analysis that has a lot of data in there, but also looks at intersectional issues, by region as well as by different communities that might be without access. So it's just, there's not always a lot of data, but we might just figure out what we do have that can be used for something like that and incorporate it into the discussion.
Thank you, Ron. Jose, you had put a comment in the chat. Do you want to speak to it?
Sure. Jose Montoya, California Health Collaborative. And one of the things that I kind of see as an opportunity, and everybody's talking about this right now, you know, CHWs, they're pretty much the Jedi right now of what, you know, is going to help in the communities we serve. And many times, you know, we can definitely develop CHWs and the trusted opportunities that they currently have in the partnerships they create and the coalitions they many times facilitate in the communities they serve. But many times they don't have toolkits, they don't have the technical assistance. They need that. So if we can provide and really help them with you know, toolkits or even infographics on issues like what do you do with emergency preparedness for aging folk, or what do you do for you know, a lot of the fraud that's going on and elderly abuse. If we can provide them with that information, that's information that they can confront in these information deserts, like rural areas that we currently confront many times. Many times when we're in rural areas and we're in community, they're like, hey, we've never heard of this program. We've never heard of that funding. And that's a communication flow issue. So many times that's where we can actually assist. And I think we can provide some of that information through CDA. So I think, yeah, definitely there's opportunity. The other opportunity I see is sustainability and activating CHWs in the communities. So many times our decision makers, they don't know what's happening on the ground. Mm-hmm. And our CHWs can actually give that ability to activate and inform decision makers at, you know, public comment and so on. A lot of folks don't understand this, but at the local level, decision makers have police powers. So many times they can make changes to fee structures, and that's where the sustainability can come into play. If we educate our decision makers and even our local, I would say, credit unions on where funding can be applied to. Right now, there is this health plan reinvestment that's happening all over the state. If we can get on those stakeholders and literally educate them on where the needs are for aging folk, I think we could do quite a bit on sustainability in the funding process. There's about over 40 different credit unions throughout the state, and many times they have problems with how do they reinvest, and they don't have stakeholder input. They're always scrambling last minute to find out where can we get where can we give money to, you know? And many times we should be there at the table saying, hey, you can give it to aging populations to you know, to confront this as your CHW programs or and so on. So those are things that I think as CDA we can actually you know, help in this master plan and really guide folks on, hey, these are areas where there could be long-lasting, sustainable funding, but also issues that are on the ground. But that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Jose. We appreciate that. I want to read a comment from Lauren Brown. Apparently she had to get off. Hi, everyone. I am an assistant professor at USC in the School of Gerontology. I do research on stress and aging and minoritized populations, and I have a father with dementia, probably Alzheimer's disease. The stressors that are common among Black and Latino communities, older adults nationally are financial strain, and housing insecurity. I think both represent places to think about intervention and support services. I also think providing hearing aids reduce the likelihood of dementia to Californians, as well as supports for people caregiving could be amazing priorities as well. So Eric, I will call on you. And Danny, I know that we'd love to hear from you as well as Carmen, Alea, and Ephraim, if you're able to also give a comment. So go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Carol. And I won't be long, and I appreciate everybody's input. This is all great. But I'm just curious because I've been taking notes. And so I just have just a couple of things I want to point out. So I've heard budget, money, and funding, and then the community health workers, which sounds great. So can you guide us as to is that something that we have to consider as a committee, or are we just putting the ideas together? Because I thought from the survey we dwindled it from these themes, and there's a three themes, and then are we today supposed to sort of dwindle that down to one? Because if we talk about numbers and demographics, and if we even talking about demographics meaning population, for example, Black older adults often face severe health declines 10 to 20 years earlier than other counterparts. So and then if you look at the population, and if you were start looking at numbers in that regard, then that population would be overlooked. I'll just say that. And then the last thing I wanted to add is, are we talking about, I heard hubs, toolkit, partners, resources. So where do we start as the group? Because all these ideas are great, but how do we actually implement? Are we looking to just come out with outreach? Are we looking for just literature? Are we looking to take, 'cause I think everybody on this call works within and does this work within their own region. So
Mhm.
as this state group, is it just feedback and you're putting together a literature packet on our ideas? How do we really get in there and make a difference? That's what I want
That's
to
a great question, Eric. And just before we move on to Danny and Carmen, I want to say that perfect question because uh, we are going to convene the leadership work group after, and we're going to consolidate everything we heard. I think there's a few really key themes that we've heard. And I'm in my head thinking of ways that we can present ways to focus the work going forward based on what we've heard. And I think there's a lot of common feedback that we've heard. So we don't have to come to that consensus right now. I think what we want to do is just hear from everybody now. And then we will summarize what we've heard, send it out to the group, and then invite our leadership work group and anybody else who wants to join it to help distill it and figure out the path forward.
Thanks, Sarah. Danny, we'd love to hear from you.
All right, thank you. I'll keep my remarks brief. I'm Danny Soto. I use they, them pronouns. I'm here representing Open House. We serve LGBTQ seniors in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I just want to put a +1, next to all the comments that have talked about the importance of equity and inclusion. We talked about the federal context, state context, people's rights and funding and access being challenged. I think one thing that's going to be perhaps challenging, but I don't think an insurmountable challenge is as we um, kind of look at equity and inclusion as kind of a through line running through, I think, most of the comments that were made today, is keeping our eyes on intersectionality. That, we've got the list of the subpopulations that have been identified as having, disparate outcomes. Those are overlapping and intersecting identities, right? They're not just distinct populations of people. And so I say that not to overwhelm us, but really, many of us live in the intersections of those same kind of identities, right? I'm a queer person, also the daughter of a formerly undocumented farm worker, right? And all of those things. So yeah, just a +1, and to thank everyone for their comments so far. I look forward to our next leadership meeting and diving in deeper.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Carmen, welcome.
Hi, and hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. I'm a newbie, so I've been sitting and listening and being educated and learning and getting informed. not having a specific backstory on the community, rather the committee itself, but a lot of enrichment and time spent on the MPA in the early stages. I just want to make this brief. I work for UCLA. My job basically is to manage all the stakeholder and community engagement of our community partner research projects that we conduct. I also have a national council that I manage on stakeholders for deprescribing of medications on a larger project. Just to say really quickly, the ground is shifting. I mean, we all realize that, we're all feeling that. And you just cannot deny the impact of what's going on nationally, what's going on the state level. And when I approached this particular committee, I saw equity and inclusion as the principle of everything that we do. So that is the guiding principle, whether it intersects and it filters everything that we do, particularly in the state of California. And there's no denying that. And whether it's housing, whether it's behavioral health, whether it is communications, it is there. And how we work with that and how do we integrate that and how we help inform other committees that are working on these specific things, very, very, very lasered on whether it's housing or be health, or how do we help. I see this committee kind of looking at how we help those or inform or better shape the work of those committees as well, to make sure that the issue of inclusion and equity is very front facing, and bringing forth, all the or integrated in all the topics that I heard, which are these are, something I'm not going to tell you how long I've been in health and human services, but I can say I've lived through a lot of wars from a very, very early age. So access and education and communication and data and current models and effective models and cross-cutting issues are what we're dealing with on a daily basis. And if there's some way that we can move forward to kind of narrow this and look at possibilities of communication models, organizational, structural change. And I'm also very interested in what's this all going to look like in the future. This is our chance right now to shape that future. I know that also the CDA and the changing the formulas and the AAAs and on is all also affecting and impacting service delivery. So I'll just be quiet there, and thank you all for listening, and thank you all for all your comments.
Yes, we appreciate, Carmen. We can tell that you work in academia. There's a little bit of professorial there. Appreciate that. Alaya?
I didn't know that was showing, so sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. Alaya, please correct me. We have a couple more minutes and then move to public comment, but we'd want to hear from you, so please. But you don't have any volume. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you able to put in the chat kind of some, yeah, thank you. We'll hear from you next time or at the leadership meeting. We appreciate your hanging in with us, and we will move to public comment. And this is our public comment portion of the meeting, the Equity Advisory Committee on Aging and Disability, EACAD, EACAD. And it's been a robust discussion. And we certainly appreciate all the committee members. Thank you all for listening with us. And if you'd like to give a comment, you may use your raised hand icon or your *9 if you're on your telephone. And if you are thinking a lot about what the committee members have said and you'd like to send us a public comment via email, you may do so. But Melody has raised her hand, so go ahead, Melody. You can unmute your line.
Thank you so very much for the session. They're always great. And listening to this particular session, I don't know if there's a way for me to send this to you or get it in chat, But Gray Panthers NYC does a series
You have faded
called
out.
Transfer.
Melody, your audio's
No,
not
she
great.
didn't.
You keep on cutting out. Go ahead. Try one more time.
I'll
You can email to engage.
If it can be sent out. Gray Panthers NYC is having their transformation Tuesday on the 30th is called Aging with Pride, Building Inclusive Communities. And if you go to the Gray Panthers NYC webpage, there's a link for registering. Gray Panthers NYC does a lot of work around the globe, so don't let the NYC think that it's just there, but it's these sessions are great, and especially with some of the content today, just wanted to invite everyone.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Melody. We have Melina, Melin. Go ahead. If you want to unmute your line, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Melina Bullen. I work for Alzheimer's Orange County. I'm the Multicultural Program Coordinator. And I just forgot who said that their father may have Alzheimer's. I do have a telenovela, but it's in Spanish, that we go through the stages of Alzheimer's through a telenovela. No, it's like a story, and we see how the events that the person with Alzheimer, and also how do the family respond to all the challenges. Again, this is in Spanish. It's gonna be the first Mondays, 3 Mondays of July, and I will send the email with a pamphlet. Hopefully, you guys can share it. And it's online, so everybody's welcome, even though we are in Orange County and we mostly work with people in Orange County. Also, I wanted to restate that I work with the people who speaks only Spanish, and many of them they don't know how to write. So that is one of the things that I want to stress out, that yes, I do have a lot of papers that I can hand it out, but sometimes it's like I'm presenting, you have the information in writing, but I'm telling you what it's saying. So you have every mode that I have available for you guys. And it takes a lot of work. And usually people who work with the minority communities, we don't have a lot of help. So I don't know. Take it in mind. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Melina. Okay, thank you again for participating in our public comment period. Again, and please send your comments if you'd like to write them later to engage, ENGAGE at aging.ca.gov. But now we can have the slide down. And I'd like to welcome our director, California Department of Aging Director Susan DeMorris, to close us out. And good morning to you, Susan. Thank you.
Hi, Carol. Thank you for leading us, and a very warm welcome to the new members of the EACAD. I'll use a soccer analogy because we're in soccer season, but you are fresh legs off the bench, because this work of fighting for equity is exhausting, and we are all weary in this fight. So I want to thank all of our longstanding members who have returned and continue the great work, for your dedication to this group. I know we're searching for the right. I saw the comment in the chat from Ron, really just each of us wants to be as impactful as possible and to use our time to further the goals, whether it's for a population, whether it's for a program, and Danny, as you said, whether it's for the intersection of all of the above that come together in very real and human ways. So I just want to thank each of you for joining today, for the time that you give to this work. I know Jax is not with us, but for those in the leadership group that have helped organize the material and helped facilitate a discussion so that in the limited time we have together, I know everyone has very busy work and personal lives, that we use our time effectively. So we're looking forward to coming back to you with some further direction. And I think the energy and infusion of new perspectives with the new members, coupled with the expertise and commitment of our longstanding members, will really serve us well as we start the next state fiscal year, July 1. So the work continues, and we're here for you as a resource. And please share anything in between meetings. We like to see articles, comments, thoughts. Feel free to share those with us, and our team, Sarah and team, will continue to lead this work through the official meetings and the process that's been laid out today. So thank you all. Thank you very much for your time, and to the CDA staff, thank you as well for planning for this meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Here are our resources, and you will receive these will be posted. And next meeting is October 25th. So please join us then, and we will hear from you between meetings. Thank you again for a really, really great meeting. I'm glad we got to hear from all of you. Take care, everyone. Thank you.